Good logic, bad logic. So before we try and apply logic to modelling change, let's have a quick look at what logic is. An American writer called Ambrose Bierce described logic as the art of thinking and reasoning in strict accordance with the limitations and incapacities of human understanding. This is a neat way of capturing the benefits and the limitations of logic. It's about applying a systematic way of thinking, but with an eye on human interpretation and perspectives. The word logic has its origins in ancient Greece, and if you look up the definition in the dictionary, it means a study and use of valid reasoning. It's sometimes called a science and can be studied as whole modules in degree courses. But we're all using logic all the time. Think about your own process of reasoning and how you communicate your arguments. What makes the communication of an argument easier or harder? What do you find helps or hinders your own reasoning? It's not rocket science. Whilst there are some concepts that you can find out more about if you want to, you can just simplify it down to good logic or bad logic. If you were to sit for a minute and write a list of what made good and bad logic, you'd probably come up with the right sort of things. Bad logic will be things that don't make sense, that don't flow, that change in unexpected ways. Think about a badly written film or TV programme, the things that jar or cause you to roll your eyes. It's often because there's some sort of flaw or gap in the logic. In our professional lives, have we ever been tasked by our boss to deliver a piece of work with little instruction, guidance or understanding of what's really required? We may make assumptions based on our own understanding, but the result may not meet with the boss's expectations. Hence, there was a potential logic gap in the instructions. I have a background in custodial services. How often do we see a policeman on TV or film interviewing someone in a prison setting before stepping out of the room to make a call on his mobile phone? This seems perfectly credible to the onlooker, but it's actually incorrect. Even Royal Visitors' personal protection officers have to hand over mobile phones and firearms at the gate. It's included as a plot device, so you could argue it's got its own logic as part of the progression of the story. But whilst it seems credible, it's based on a negative premise. Good logic, on the other hand, is the reverse of the things you probably thought about in your list of bad logic. It needs to have a sound premise, be consistent with reality, and as complete and accurate as possible. It needs to flow. It's useful to think about good logic in terms of SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or reasonable, and timely. Good logic comes from a sound rationale, and the outputs from it can be measured. The output should be replicable in the science jargon. Because logic is man-made, we create it in an attempt to understand our world. Then there's always a risk that it's flawed. A philosopher called Hume advised that you apply practical skepticism when using logic. So with that in mind, you'll be armed with the ability to check and refine your logic.